And now that we have the internet and social media and podcasts and all of these platforms where people get to taste and experience someone's work, how do they distinguish between what one person does and another that sound the same? And that's where authority comes in.
I know I always say excited, but this guest is awesome and is something that a lot of us need right now. This is Melanie Benson. She is what we call an authority amplifier. She has her own podcast, Amplify Your Success podcast, and she teaches you how to become an authority in your field. And if you want to ever learn how to do more by doing less, being seen as the authority and spending less time out trying to convince people is always the best way. Listen in. Do more by doing less. With me, Charles Alexander, for small business owners, startups, and busy folks. So, what are the gardeners doing, by the way?
Well, they do what they do. They do the gardening. Although, funny story, they only do half of the yard because half of the yard died when we had all the floods a couple years ago. And we were like, you know what?
So when you say half the yard, is it like a line down the middle? Does it look like a civil war going on? What's happening?
Kind of. It's actually, I'm a bit of a perfectionist, and my husband and I laugh about it because I want it fixed. What happened was we seeded the lawn. All of the grass seed with all the extra rain floated to one end of the yard in the backyard. And then that's really nice and lush. And the rest of it has never caught on. So we're like, do we reseed it? Do we lay grass? What do we do?
Well, what a great analogy, because I brought you on to tell us how to be an authority amplifier. So that's kind of like, we want to be the green grass. We don't want to be the dead grass. So tell us kind of what that concept is and what you help people do.
Yeah. So I've been in business for 23 years, and somewhere about year 3 or 4, I realized that there are a lot of people that sound like me. There's a lot of people that sound like you. There's a lot of people that have similar offerings. And now that we have the internet and social media and podcasts and all of these platforms where people get to taste and experience someone's work, how do they distinguish between what one person does and another that sound the same? And that's where authority comes in. Authority is how we help other people recognize our unique value that we contribute to the world and why we are an expert they can count on and get either their need met, their solution generated, get to their goal. And authority is in the mind and the eyes of the beholder. So they perceive us to be capable and the go-to person or not. So it helps us stand out, and it helps give us that little bit of competitive edge.
Sure. I love the way you said that, especially right out of the gate. And that's kind of a cringy secret amongst a lot of coaches, speakers, whoever's, but it is a very real thing. A lot of us look, walk, and talk and sound the same. It's like I've described it to clients where it's like a box of Kleenex. You can just keep on pulling. There's just another one that pops up and screams something about, authenticity and credibility and and it is, and it's all good stuff. But that's where it's good to have somebody, come in and kind of say, well, why are you different? Why are you unique? Why would somebody listen to you versus somebody else? And it doesn't always have to be this distinct competitive advantage because I've got some certifications. It probably could just be that does somebody like you? Do they trust some of the things you have to say? And do you kind of match up a little bit?
Yeah, I think that's a big piece of it. Is we were just talking about this yesterday, and I run this cohort called 100K at their accelerator. And one of the conversations was like, okay, when you use this language, you are invisible because you literally sound like everybody else that does law of attraction or whatever. But when they add this one little piece of their unique energy, like when they show up authentic and in their full power, there's energy. When they use language that includes something that's unique or something that can only be done through their framework or process, then it starts to be stand out language. It's magnetic, compelling language. So, but yeah, I was going to say rapport. That was one of the things that came up in our conversation. It's like, nobody can replicate your rapport. Nobody can replicate your energy and the way you show up in your visibility opportunity. That's right. And that's one of the ways we can stand out.
They can't tell your story. They can tell the same story that everybody else has been saying over and over. And just based off what you said, a couple of real quick things. First of all, you said a cohort, an accelerator.
Mm-hmm.
And this is me being completely selfish here. I have been trying to toy around with the word mastermind, but everybody else has used the word mastermind to every degree whatsoever. Do you like mastermind? Do you like cohort? What's the term?
Well, I have both. So I have
Okay.
my Ignite Mastermind, and that is a traditional mastermind. And I think a mastermind has a different energy than a cohort or a group coaching program. They do different things. So to me, a cohort is a group of people that begin and end a process together. Mine is a 12-week container, and the same people start it and the same people finish it. There's a very specific curriculum and a very specific outcome. But
Sure.
in a mastermind, you're activating what we call the third mind, and that is the mind that is created only when more than two people are joined together to share ideas, to support each other. And I think mastermind is more of a co-created experience,
Got you.
best when run by somebody who has a track record of
Sure.
facilitating those experiences. So I think they're very different things.
They are. I love the way you just described that. And I'm glad I'm going to get the transcription from this later and I'll figure out which one I want to call everything else that I want to do. But in your cohort, in your $100,000 accelerator, you were talking about exclusive language and inclusive language. And exclusive, I'm assuming not exclusive like this is, you know, exclusive only to you, but exclusive as in it cuts people out. So what are,
Mhm.
just in that topic of that story you were telling, what was some of the language you heard people using that, sounded like white noise, or what would count as that?
Yeah. So let me see if I can tap back into the conversation that we were having specifically yesterday. It's usually goes something like this. I'm going to help you like go from 6 figures to 7 figures.
Right.
Okay. Yes, you can do that. But why? I have another client who just graduated, who's now in the Authority Club, and she was like introducing herself, and I saw her introduction, and she said, I will help you go from best kept secret to sought out expert. And
Sure.
I'm like, yes, but you just left off your uniqueness with
Hmm.
$1 billion brand, because that's her uniqueness, is building
Gotcha.
$1 billion brand. So what we do is we think we need to say certain language for us to be relevant, because that's the secret, Charles, to great messaging is, and that's one of the 4 little factors that I teach, is relevance gets people to listen. So when we're doing a conversation like we're doing right now, or you're on a stage, or maybe you're creating some social media content, or you're doing a video for
Hmm.
your streaming service, whatever you're doing, right? If your message isn't relevant to the audience you want to attract, they're not listening. They're just scrolling on by. And
Right.
our job is to learn how to stop the scroll, stop the distractions, stop the
Sure.
multitasking, and get people to lean in.
So well, let's go ahead. You said there's 4 steps, and the first one's relevance. What's the other 3?
I knew you were going to ask me that.
It's exciting.
I teed you up and you went smack. I got
Yeah.
it.
I'm a listener.
So there are 4, I call it, this is my magnetic messaging formula. It's ROCS, ROCS. The first factor is relevance. And we already unpacked that a little bit. The second one is outcomes. And this is a super common mistake. And by the way, I made this mistake for many years. And I had a great mentor who gave me a smackdown and said, Melanie, you're selling features and nobody buys features until they know they want the outcome. Then
Right.
they're going to decide what they want. So outcomes are what is going to be different, better, fixed. What can they count on once they complete the work you're doing? And that was another big part of the conversation yesterday, is a lot of the people, when they're working on their messaging sound bites, they're like, they were still talking about the features instead of outcomes. So
Here's all the
outcomes is
things
the
you
first
will
one.
get along the way. You'll get whatever Zoom calls and handhelds
Yeah,
and
those are
all these bonuses, the
yes.
Facebook Live. But what they want is what will happen. What will I be in 90 days? Right.
Yeah. What's going to be better for me? What I'm making this investment, what am I going to be able to count on that's fixing my problem or getting me to my
Sure.
outcome? Or how am I going to be transformed might be another thing. So outcomes. The third one is C, and that's credibility. We were talking about rapport earlier. And to me, credibility and rapport are kind of like partners on the journey. And credibility is that it goes really, it's the source of authority. How do you do something and can be counted on for certain results? Or, do you have a story that I really find is my story and yet you're 10 steps ahead of me, or you've solved the problem I'm still in? So credibility is what helps people decide, you or someone else, can they count on you? And there's ways in our messaging to infuse credibility without sounding like a icky, as they call it, bro marketing.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, we don't need to like stand in front of a Lambo and, have this bright, shiny life. It's really
Yes.
like, do I feel like I can count on you to deliver this thing that I want? So that's credibility.
Well, let me pause real quick on credibility. Is
Yeah.
some of that telling them that I've done this before, or is some of that telling them that other clients have used this and here's was their results, or does it have to be you need a bunch of letters after your name?
Well, I think so first of all, great question. It depends on what you're selling.
Gotcha.
And most of us underutilize our credibility because we don't want to come off hypey. And yet credibility is what is a major decision maker for the person deciding, you or someone else. So credibility could be your story, as I mentioned. It could be sharing case studies of clients and giving enough detail in that people see themselves in the problem and they're like, I want that too.
Sure.
It could be one of the things that's performed very well for me, and because I test everything, and this might blow some people's minds, but I find that Facebook, my personal profile, continues to be a rich source of connection with potential clients. And I often will share my rags to riches or problem to solution.
Sure.
And those posts are story-based posts, and they drive so many leads to my master classes, which then become an opportunity to work with me. And so that's another version of how you can demonstrate credibility is, I've done this and here's what I did and here's how I help people do it now.
And then K out of rock for my magnetic message is
And I'm going to blow your mind because there's no K. It's an
what?
S.
Oh, was it
Rocks.
S?
ROCS.
That's what I was tricking you to see if you remembered, Melanie.
Yeah.
Good job.
Well, that's a perfect setup to the solution because I did it that way to make it more memorable.
No, that's
S
good.
is specificity. And this one cannot be understated. And it has to be right there, specific. So specificity has, first of all, it can be 6 steps. It could be the 3-part formula. It could be, how to generate another $100,000 a year. It can be whatever in that case in the messaging itself. But here's where people underplay their specificity. And that is in the market today, Charles. I find, and my peers who teach a lot of this, we find that specific offerings to specific audiences outperform general offerings to general audiences. Massive. Like it's like a 10,000% better return when you can specify a specialty that you have and a
Right.
specialty group that you work with. So you were talking about inclusion and exclusion before, and I think this is a trigger for a lot of people. Do we have time that we could just unpack this for a
Yes,
second?
let's do that. I like unpacking.
So, yeah, messaging, it's so powerful because you're either speaking to everyone and in speaking to everyone, you're speaking to no one, or you're speaking to one person who deeply feels your words and feels moved and compelled to get into action. And then you amplify that. And then you're speaking to an audience of people who share that need and that desire. And the way to get there is inclusive versus exclusive messaging. Exclusive means I know who I don't want to work with. I know who my best client is, and I'm creating a message that they relate to, they see themselves in. They want to work with me because they're feeling called by the message I'm creating and sharing. And then everyone else goes, I don't know, I don't really think that's for me. And letting that be okay. Right? Like one of my greatest fears, and I will put myself on the vulnerability block here for a minute. One of my greatest fears when I started was like specializing.
Right.
Like I was like so afraid to niche down and maybe just work with one particular type of person. And guess what? Like when I did that, my business exploded. My authority was amplified
Sure.
and
Yes.
accelerated because people knew what they could count on from me. So that's one of the things that I think is the little bit of a secret weapon around messaging that really amplifies the reach of your message to your right people.
I love that so, so much. I've been doing business coaching in all shape, forms, or fashion for 17 years, anywhere from startups to 7, 8 figure businesses. And that's one of the things that has always been the bane of my existence in terms of trying to help people figure out how to niche down. And I know you're in LA, you probably say niche. Here in Middle Tennessee, we say niche because that's just how we were raised. But the idea is that if you cast this wide net, you catch very little fish. If you catch a narrow with specific bait, you can do a whole lot better. So for myself, I also have an explainer video business, and I started that, oh gosh, almost 10 years ago now, creating these 90-second videos. And starting out, it was for a little bit of everybody everywhere. And then I quote unquote niched down to people that are in advisory role. There was still like 8 different vertical markets, and I had real estate agents and bankers and CPAs and attorneys and a little bit of everything. And it was driving me crazy. So one day I sat down, printed out my list, didn't look at the industries, just highlighted the people that I liked. Didn't mean that I didn't like the other people, but just the folks that like Melanie. I like Melanie. We're on a conversation. This is fun. I want more Melanie. So I just highlight all of them. When I got done, they were almost all, for whatever reason, financial and insurance. Now that doesn't mean that's for the rest of my life, but for that one thing that I was doing and still do, explainer videos, that niche really worked. So with that being said, that was my little trick. What do you tell people that are in the middle of whatever, their coaching or their advisors? How do they figure out what niche or what market they want to speak to?
Yeah, great question. I mean, it's really there's an easy process, but then there's testing, right? Which might take a little bit of time. And I say the easiest process is who's the ideal client that gets the best results, and what is the kind of the thing that you're doing with them that you can amplify. So this is like a whole class in itself, is how to be specific. I think I actually did a podcast episode on this recently, because specificity can be my thing that I do. It could be the niche that I serve, or it could be both of those things,
Right.
right? So you can niche, you can narrow your focus, you can narrow your ideal client, or you can double niche or hyper niche and do both. I've done both. Like I now work exclusively with people who consider themselves to be an expert, or they want to be seen as an expert. And what I teach is visibility strategies, specifically how to use both sides of the microphone to turn on a 24/7 lead source of ideal clients.
So let's back into that, because I had this whole list of things I wanted to talk about. In the middle was magnetic message. So back at the top of one of the things that I noticed that you're great at is helping people create what you call a visibility plan. What does that mean?
So I was having this flood of clients for a while, a few years back, who said, I'm really struggling to get ideal leads in the door. And when I did a little auditing and assessing what the real problem was, all of a sudden I realized, like, nobody knows what they do because they're not seen anywhere.
Sure.
They're not doing anything to get their message out outside of the referrals that come in the door. And if the referrals stop working, then
They're
what?
in trouble.
Yes. So I teach people how to have visibility where your message is in front of new audiences. And there's a lot of ways to do this. I mean, everybody understands Google and Facebook ads.
Sure.
Yeah, that's a visibility strategy because you're getting leads. But what I consider visibility is you, the person with the expertise, the business owner, the thought leader, learns how to shape and hone in a message that's really compelling. And then you get in front of audiences either in social media or on other people's platforms or stages and share that message as an attraction tool. When I looked back, Charles, on what really moved the needle for me in the early days, being on a stage.
Ooh.
This was before we had podcasts, right? We
Sure.
barely were getting teleseminars back then. We didn't have webinars or anything like that. And every time I was on a teleseminar or I was on a stage, I got a flood of clients. And now we have more technology that gives us more options. And you have to find a way to get your message to be magnetic and to be irresistible and compelling so that your ideal clients go, oh, that's me.
Yes.
And you want that. I call it the fall over message. Like I had this experience one time. I had done a teleseminar. I was speaking in an event. And so we would do these teleseminars beforehand to kind of give people a preview of what was coming.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm at the event and I'm in my room and I'm getting ready for my speaking slot. I come down the elevator doors open. There's a woman standing there. She goes, oh, are you Melanie Benson?
Ooh.
And I'm like, okay, weird. I'm not, yes, why? She said, I'm here because of what you shared. You literally were like,
wow,
exactly what I was struggling with. And she literally was like, shaking almost because she was so excited to get the answers to the questions I'd posed.
Wow.
When you're speaking to your ideal audience about the things they're struggling with and they need most, you're going to have that fall over moment with them. And that's what we're creating with the right messaging.
So I get some good messaging together. I figure out exactly who I'm talking to, what questions they have.
Yeah.
Have the answers, but speak very specifically to them with some inclusive language. And that might mean we're going to ward off some people, which technically is great news because we don't want everybody. I can give you a list of people I don't want right now. And
I'm with
I
you
try
on that
to,
one.
yeah. And that's part of what I get to do with, my podcast or the information or the social media posts I put out there. It wards some people off. And you need to be doing the same thing. So I get that visibility plan together and I decide, all right, time to be on more podcasts, time to start a podcast, or maybe I need to ramp up Instagram or go speak on some stages. A couple of other things that you've got that you talk about, and this might not apply to everybody that I work with, but for a lot of the folks I work with, they need to be more high ticket in a lot of different ways. This isn't just coaching. I mean, we got financial advisors that listen that need to offer high ticket fee based only advice, or insurance agents that need to target high net worth clients, or entrepreneurs that are scared, I think, and I'm included in the bunch. This program that I've got coming out, we're not giving it away. And what do you tell people about creating a high ticket offer?
Well, you asked me earlier, what does it mean to be an authority? And I think one of the ways that we can boost our authority, build our authority, and demonstrate our authority is by being willing to have a higher ticket or premium offering. And, that kind of offering can be packaged any way it needs to be so you are elevated from the crowd, right? Like you want to set yourself apart from everyone else. And two things happen. One, you have that perceived, okay, well, they're charging a premium rate, they must have premium expertise, right? So we give that instant awareness of the power of your knowledge and wisdom and your process. But the second thing that I find is really valuable is you're actually creating a simpler, do less to achieve more, to impact more business model. Like how I tied that together.
Ooh, I love that. That's going in the highlight reel.
Yeah. So I've worked with thousands and thousands of experts over the years. And I used to have programs where we worked with 50 to 100 people in each of our cohorts.
It's a lot.
And I found the model to get really complicated. And even though I felt like we were having great impact, I also felt disconnected and out of touch from the people that I most wanted to serve, who I most wanted to impact their lives. Because I had other coaches running the programs. There were so many people, I couldn't keep track of them. And premium programs, and again, you can still do one-to-many in a premium program, but they give, in my experience, they can give you more high touch. There is more integration. Like for me, somebody being able to integrate what I'm doing with them is so important. I don't want to teach them something and then find out later they never did anything with it. I want them to integrate.
Oh, yeah.
So I design my programs with more high touch, more premium, but they're also integrating, they're getting results in real time. So there's a lot of different ways that you can high ticket something. You can have a VIP or like an immersion day. You can have like done for you services where you're charging, high five, maybe six figures. You can have group coaching, cohorts. My cohorts would be considered premium rates. And I think that those are all things that you can do. But the bottom line is, do you want to have high quality, really amazing clients who are easier to work with, quite frankly, and be willing to charge a little bit of a premium rate to be able to attract those higher premium clients?
And I love the way you tied that in with the do more by doing less. I know so many people, myself included over the years, have all of these low ticket offers in order to work somebody's, to work your way up with somebody. And sometimes that works. And sometimes you just end up with a ton of clients who are low paying clients who also bring, sometimes low paying problems along with them. And there's no quicker way to burn out or find frustration. Gosh, Melanie, there's 52 other things I want to ask you about. We're going to make a quick pivot though, in speaking on kind of this topic. So and as I say that, I'm going to do a quick recap. So if you want to be seen as an authority, you need to really think through some of the ways you're going to be visible to other people. And you need to pick probably whatever you're going to enjoy quite a bit. Create, a high ticket offer that will resonate with a very specific client, and use some magnetic messaging in order to reach that one specific individual, and don't be afraid to have a niche. So in doing all of that, I know you're big on collaboration and systems. So let me ask kind of a softball question that goes along with the title of this podcast. What is something, Melanie, that you should be doing personally less of right now?
Yes, good question. I had to think about that a little bit. For me, I find myself managing too much. I managed team, I managed projects, I managed deliverables because I'm good at it. I came out of the Fortune 500 world where that was what I did. And that puts me into bottleneck mode.
Yes. So if you free up some of that management, as if you delegate it or you automate it or you just let go, what will that give you a chance to do more of?
Well, one of my superpowers is connecting. And so, managing less gives me space to build relationships more. And that's one of my things that it's just soul fuel for me. It's rocket fuel. Like my business catapults when I make more time to collaborate with people. So I have this built-in opportunity in my podcast, but there's so much more beyond the podcast and doing interviews on other people's podcasts. So that's the thing that I'm always craving more time for. And we're already in motion on this. Like I recognized that last year. I'm like, okay, got to fix this one. And yeah, that's the payoff.
I completely agree. I catch myself doing too many minor review tasks of things that, VAs have done that they know how to do it. And then in a lot of cases, this is what I enjoy the most. This is when I'm tracking how I feel during the day. And if I'm stuck behind the screen clicking around, my energy is low. When I have a conversation with the Melanies of the world, I'm pumped up, ready to go, and life is fun. Melanie, and you've got a few different programs. But what's something you want to leave with us today? What's a program or something you've got coming up that people need to know about?
Yeah, well, we are getting ready to open up doors to my next 100K Authority Accelerator, which is my 12-week cohort. I flippin' love this program. And by week 3, people are already telling me I've gotten more than my money back. So that's awesome. How we help people design their messaging, their heck yes premium offer, and get them on stages and podcasts to create exposure for that. So we're getting ready to open the doors to that. And I'm beyond excited about it. You can find out about it at melaniebenson.com/coaching. But I have something that I think might be like an immediate first yes for everybody listening in today. I'm often asked, like, Melanie, how did you put all this together? How did you figure out how these pieces work? And I created a free download that is called the $1 Million Visibility Plan, because I got so many questions about, like, how does it all work? Like, what do you do first? How do you organize it? How do you find it? And so if you go to amplifywithmelanie.com, you will be able to download that free resource. And I have a little mini training that goes with it that you can check out if it feels aligned to you. But that's literally how all the pieces come together and make it all work.
What was that website again?
Amplifywithmelanie.com.
Love it. Melanie, I appreciate it. Time flew by. Hope the gardeners are able to work with half the yard that's doing well. And I don't know, maybe bless the other half that ain't.
It is what it is.
I hear you. Have a great
Thank
day.
you, Charles. Thank you for a great conversation.
You're welcome. Don't take off just yet. I've created a new program just for you, helping overworked entrepreneurs create their very own 4-day work week in 90 days or less. Look, if you'd rather spend more time with family, friends, traveling, exercising, having the time to do what you want instead of, putting out never-ending fires, tackling another to-do list, and checking email at 9 p.m., then go to my website, yourcharlesalexander.com. If you've created the income you want but don't have the time freedom you deserve, then this is for you. And as always, if you don't, an angel may actually lose its wings. True story. Have a great day.